last year we did this video. You guys absolutely loved it. We gave you a free tool to use, and we're going to do the exact same thing in this video. A very simple method to make sure that you're taking advantage of your fantasy football league mates and winning your draft. We're going to give you this tool for free. The only thing that we ask is you drop a like on the video and make sure you subscribe, because we're going to bring you a ton of good fantasy football content from now to the end of the season to help you win your fantasy football leagues. But let's talk about this very simple strategy again. Obviously, we already talked about our overall strategy. You can check it out in this video right here that we have linked. It's a full breakdown of our round by round strategy that we think is the best strategy in fantasy football this year based on what we have found in our research. Now, let's talk about how that applies and when you break that rule, because there were tons of comments on that video like, yeah, sure, you do this, but if this guy falls, then you have to take this. Yeah, but if it happens this way, you've got to go this way. 100% agree, right? And we're going to talk about how that applies and how you know if you should deviate from the strategy that we gave you in that video. And so what we have here are our top 5 tiers of players for this year. Same thing we gave you last year, right? And basically, we're going to talk about these players, how you perfect your round 1 and 2 balance, and then what you do if somebody falls. So the rule is this. If a player falls to you, and that player is the last player in a tier above where you're picking, you take the player, you take the value. That's always true, right? And so in this specific example, if Chase falls to 2, he's an auto draft. If he falls to 3, he's an auto draft. If he falls to 4, he's an auto draft. Let's say you're picking at 5. You should theoretically be picking from the B tier here, and it should be Saquon and Justin Jefferson you're deciding from. But what this chart says, if Bijan falls, Lamb falls, or Gibbs falls to 5, they are auto drafts. You're not deciding between Saquon and Jefferson. You're deciding between whoever falls. If you're drafting at the 8 or 7 rather, and you should think Chase, Bijan, Lamb, Gibbs, Saquon, and Jefferson, all 6 of those guys are gone, then you'd be taking, selecting from this tier here, and then you'd make your second round selection. If one of the guys from the top 3 tiers falls, you take him.
That's what I had to do. And that's what I was not planning on doing, but it ended up happening in the Flock League.
And you can talk about it because it's out by now.
Yeah, right. And so I literally had to follow this strategy myself. I went into the pick 107 literally being faced with hey, who do I take here? Do I take Neighbors? Do I take Puka? Do I take Amon-Ra? Because I knew for sure I wanted to take a wide receiver there. Those are my top 3 ranked wide receivers in that range. I had to decide between one of those 3 guys. Lo and behold, I get to pick 7. And actually, I knew there was going to be a faller in that tier above. I knew I was going to get one of Saquon or Jefferson because Sal took CMC at the 105. So when that pick happened, I was scrambling, trying to figure out what my new strategy was going to be, because that literally changed everything. And again, that can be a good thing. That can be a really nice thing that can eventually result in potential value even falling to you in the second round, which also happened to me as well. But again, you got to make sure that you're adjusting on the fly. Don't get too married to a player. I'm essentially married to Puka Nacua because I'm obsessed with him, but I wasn't going to reach on Puka Nacua because Jefferson was available there and then just let Jefferson continue to fall down boards, right? I wasn't going to pull a bush, right? So make sure, I cannot reinforce how important it is, no matter what player you're set on selecting, you cannot let a value faller make it past you in the first and second round. Specifically, those 2 rounds are key. Those are essential to giving you the best chance possible to win your league, and you got to make sure that you're hitting on those picks.
And so I spent pretty much the entire weekend while we were in Austin drafting with the Flock guys, 5 of the other sharpest fantasy football creators in the industry. And I spent literally 24 hours before our draft, in between when we knew our order and when we were drafting, playing mental chess with them, trying to figure out which are the top players.
Who are they going to take?
Who are they going to take?
Yeah.
And so these tiers that we have here, this is a result of what we learned in Austin, who these guys all value. In my opinion, this is very consensus among sharp fantasy football players. These are the top players, and these are the tiers they go in. By the time it got to me at the 2-3 turn, all of these guys had gone. All the way through Ladd, plus Bowers had gone, and I consider Kyron and Hampton in this tier as well. But pretty much consensus right now, what you're seeing among sharp fantasy football drafters is everybody through Ladd pretty much is almost always going
guaranteed
in those top 2 rounds. And so these tiers are proven by a lot of research, and so you can use these tiers to determine who the value fallers are, and you can always count on these guys. If they do fall to you, or if you have a value faller, or if you're picking in a tier, these are going to be the right guys to select in your first and second round. Now, from your first and second round selection, you're going to have to decide your draft strategy. Of course, our favorite draft strategy, again, this year, is to go balance. Basically this. If you take a wide receiver, in the first round, elite wide receiver, you go elite opposite in the second, and vice versa with running back and wide receiver. However, it doesn't always work that way. Let's say in the first round, you take Bijan Robinson, and then you get back to the second round, and everybody in the C tier, the B tier, the A tier, the S tier is gone, but there is one faller, and the faller is Derrick Henry. This simple rule where you take the value fallers out of tiers says to take Derrick Henry, and we absolutely stand by that. No, you're not getting the balanced running back start we want, but you got a value faller, and the upside that you'll have with like a Bijan and a Derrick Henry would be off the charts. You have to take the value that falls. Always, out of tiers especially. And so at that point, you are pivoting. And so let's talk about the different strategies that you could end up with. And we can kind of rotate here. I'll start with the first one. I did talk about balance. So let me go to double running back in that example I just used. Double running backs means you take 2 elite running backs in the first 2 rounds. Okay. And there are some different strategies this year, or some different platforms that support actually double running back being the best spot. So for example, when you're looking at the Flock platform over on our algorithm, which is built for basically advanced players, super sharp leagues, double running back actually makes sense at the 3 spot if you get a faller like a Jacobs, Bucky, or JT, and we basically say, hey, you're getting Gibbs probably or Bijan out of this tier, and you're probably starting double running back here. And what happens when you go double running back? Then you're going to go receiver pretty much the next 4 rounds because you have to, right? Next 3 out of 4 rounds at very least, and then if you can get a running back in the 7th round, maybe you do. But definitely with double running back, you are going heavy receiver for the next 4 rounds, maybe the next 5 rounds, and then sprinkling in a running back or 2. But that is something that happens when you draft 2 running backs in the first 2 rounds. Next one.
So the other one is double wide receiver. Again, this is just the other skill position that we think is very vital to making sure that you're locking it down within the first 4 rounds, making sure that you have, again, at least 2 wide receivers through the first 4 rounds. As well as having some of those running backs so that you're really safe at those skill positions. You can take care of quarterback and tight end later. But with double wide receiver, again, this is something where, like, if there's not a value follower, if there's not a Derrick Henry that makes it to you at the 207, or at the 206, I guess, which is where I was drafting in the Flock League. But again, based on the intel that I had, I knew that Drake London was going to be available at the 206. Based on the intel you might have in your league, you might know if you're drafting in the middle of the 2nd round that you know Drake London is going to be available there. Well, what if you did select Justin Jefferson? What if you did select Malik Neighbors? What if you did get a follower in CeeDee Lamb who was maybe available at the 105 or 106 and you ended up having Drake London fall into your lap in the 2nd round? Just take him. Just take him. It's okay. Like, this is one where, again, we highly recommend for a lot of people, go ahead and go with that balanced strategy in the first 2 rounds. Take a wide receiver and then take the elite opposite in the 2nd round. Whichever one you go with, you take the other one in the other round. But again, there are scenarios here. Again, this is something that, like, I was essentially planning on and locked into exercising in the Flock League. My plan was Puka Nacua and Drake London. That's what I was heading into the draft expecting to happen, because I was already excited that London was probably going to be available because I knew Bucky was going to go high. Ended up getting way more followers than I expected. Derrick Henry ended up being available there. But again, if you're faced with a situation where you just see a clear follower, if you draft BTJ in the first at the 110 and Amon-Ra falls to the 203, by golly, just take Amon-Ra. Like, geez Louise, it's not that complicated. Like, you don't have to overthink yourself. You don't have to overthink the board. You don't have to overthink, well, maybe I'm not going to have a good running back follower in the 3rd. Just take Amon-Ra. He's not going to lose you a league. If you have him with Brian Thomas Jr., I would kill to have that start. Please go ahead and just do it. So again, keep that in mind. You just because we have a preferred strategy doesn't mean it ends up being the best strategy depending on how the board falls.
And like I mentioned, actually, this is one of these are really the only 3 strategies, I should say, that you should be drafting this year. You should either go balanced, double wide receiver, double running back. But we're eliminating the hero builds. Why are we doing this? Because, again, I don't think you should be punting at a position just because you draft a running back or wide receiver in the first round. We're all about that golden ratio through the first 6 rounds, right? 3 running backs and 3 wide receivers, or 4 running backs and 2 wide receivers. And that doesn't really fit with either the hero wide receiver or hero running back build, where you are drafting 1 running back in the first and then all wide receivers, and then 1 wide receiver or all running backs. If you do that at any of those positions, you're probably going to end up screwed this year. Hero builds, get them out of here. I don't really care about them. You can hear other people talk about them, and that's fine, but we're not going to be advocating for you to do that, because we think it's very important this year, especially in, for example, 2 flex leagues where you're starting 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, to just have a balance. Having a balance is a good thing. Don't overload on one position. Obviously, take the value. Obviously, play your league and know your league settings and know your league mates, but at the same time, really, you should only be going balanced, double running back, or double wide receiver this year, and then you should just be adjusting after that. And
and oh, by the way, the elite tight end strategy, if you are going to take one of those top guys, I think we learned, case in point, in every single draft that we've done up until this point, even before we did the Flock League, we were telling you guys, look at what you are sacrificing at other positions in terms of security and the ability to have a nice second flex option. That what you're sacrificing there is monumental. Like, it is huge. And even further than that, some of the teams would go elite tight end, and they would also take an elite quarterback within the first 5 rounds, right? Essentially doing the rainbow draft strategy. We have literally thrown that strategy into the closet, and we won't even look at it because it is so risky this season because of how significant that drop off is really after the 7th round of the amount of comfortable flex options that you're looking at. So elite tight end, again, just understand that you are sacrificing a significant amount of depth and security at one of those skill positions, wide receiver or running back, when you select the Bowers. Definitely don't take him in the early second. If he falls to you at the 2-3 turn, I honestly can't blame you if you want to select him there. He's at that point, he's probably going to at least pay off at ADP. But is he going to be a league winner at price? Is McBride going to be a league winner at price? Probably not. And there are guys that you could get in that range of wide receiver, running back that definitely could carry you to a championship.
And so we do have this all available to you over in the algorithm. If you want all the detailed draft strategy definitions, different adjustments you should make for like 14, 18, or 14-team leagues, 8-team leagues, start 7 versus start 8, super flex leagues, but then also the best strategies, really the top 3 strategies for each draft position on all of the top platforms where you can get a personalized cheat sheet for your draft. You should go check it out over on the site. You get it for free with the season pass. So if you use code DOMAIN and then sign up for the season pass over on the site, you get everything that we offer, including the algorithm, which has all this detailed information, but also you're going to get all of our fantasy football rankings, all of our tools, and a bunch of other things from now until the end of the season. It's only $34, and so you're going to be able to get our draft guide and other draft guides for free, our algorithm. And so make sure you take advantage of that. I got the link pinned down in the comments if you would like to see this entire research bundle that we have put together for you to win your fantasy football drafts. One other thing we did cover last year that we should probably talk about this year that people enjoyed was the roster construction strategy that we took into our drafts, and so how you should be allocating your different positions in your fantasy football league. And so we broke it down to simple percentages here for PPR leagues. Quarterbacks should be 6 to 12% of your roster. Tight end should be 6 to 12% of your roster. Basically what we're saying here is we're saying 1 or 2, pretty much 1. Nathan and I like drafting only one of these positions pretty much at all times. Yeah. Running backs make up 25 to 40% of your roster, and wide receivers slightly more than that, 40 to 50% of your rosters. Let's talk about quarterback. This year, the rule is going to be this. If you have a top 10 quarterback, you only really need to roster 1. If you're drafting quarterbacks like really, really late, like you're essentially punting quarterback, then you can draft 2. Otherwise, you're going to draft 1 quarterback. And obviously, in Superflex leagues, you're going to want 3 quarterbacks rostered because you are going to have those 2 starting quarterbacks. And then you're also going to want a viable backup because you are going to have injuries, right? At the running back position, it's a little bit different. It depends on the league format. Of course, in a start 2 and 2 flex of each of running back and wide receiver, we're going to do 4 to 6 running backs in that scenario and 7 to 8 wide receivers. We're always going to lean more heavily towards wide receivers because they are easier to find later in drafts. There are a lot more wide receivers that produce than there are running backs, and so those flex spots more often than not are going to be made up of productive wide receivers. In a start 2 flex 1, we'll say 4 to 5 running backs and 6 to 7 wide receivers. And then again, tight end, roster 1 of them, roster 2 if you take somebody that's injured and you have an IR slot or something like that, but not an obvious candidate for this year. And so again, if you follow those roster construction strategies, you'll end up with the right ratio of guys on your team. And we've obviously already, again, laid out our entire strategy for you in this video that we have linked here. And so make sure you check that out if you want a round-by-round strategy that we love for fantasy football this year. But again, the tool is going to be available to you for free. I have it linked down in the comments. What you have to do, if you go to flockfantasy.com, create an account with code DOMAIN, I'm going to have it on there completely free for you guys. Just go to the draft guide section and you'll be able to see it there, and you can download it and use it for your leagues. Again, just create a free account with code DOMAIN and you'll be good to go. And while you're there, again, if you want all of the information that we have put out there for you for your draft strategy, everything that we offer in terms of rankings, we have other draft guides available on the site, our algorithm that tells you about every strategy and what the best strategy is for your specific pick. You can also get a free trade question, free start sit question, all that stuff. If you do the season pass, again, $34, it takes care of you for the entire season. It's the only subscription you need in fantasy football, and it is by far the best value we've ever had on the site. And in my opinion, the most bang for your buck I've ever seen in a fantasy football subscription. So go check it out. I've got both of those linked, but we appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you later.